Today, I'm starting something new. Not just this podcast, but also progress over perfection. If you don't know, my name is Lili, and I run the Lili Invest YouTube channel that documents my real estate investing journey and brings you guys along with me. But today is the very first episode of the new Listen In with Lili Invest podcast. I have been playing around with the idea of starting a podcast for probably over a year now. And the reason I didn't do it was simple: the pursuit of perfection. But while making a video for my main channel, I got the chance to speak with Jamil Damji, another real estate investor and content creator, and that conversation really inspired me to just take action, make some progress, forget the perfection, and start the podcast. And so today, you're gonna get the chance to listen in. My entire goal with this podcast is to create a space where people like us who are interested in financial freedom, investing, time freedom, get to listen into conversations with people who have achieved those things. And I guess it's kind of fitting that this first episode wasn't actually supposed to be a podcast. It's not perfect, my audio isn't great, I don't have all of the fancy gear, but it's a genuine conversation with somebody who has achieved so much and done it in such a great way. And so if you're cool with that, I would love for you to join me in this progress over perfection movement, see how fast we can get to 1,000 subscribers, and enjoy this off the cuff, but for me, inspiring conversation with Jamil.
What's going on, guys? I'm Jamil Damji. I am the co-founder of Keegly, a nationally franchised wholesale operation. We are in 132 markets. I do over 5,000 wholesale transactions in my career, typically 60 to 80 deals a month. And that's only in our corporate stores. On top of that, I run the, I think, most popular community in wholesaling, Astro flipping, where I've got over 3,500 students. And I am on one of the #1 rated A&E television fix and flip shows, Triple Digit Flip.
Yeah, sorry guys, forgot to record. So you it twice. So before the before and after times.
So let me take you back in time, right? Okay. So we're 2002. I'm a dusty individual who just had his complete world shattered because I didn't get into medical school. And my parents and I had this dream that I was going to be a doctor. And, you know, I worked really hard for it. I had near 4.0 GPA. I took the MCAT, which is the medical school entrance exam. I did really well on that. Got to the point where I had an interview to medical school, and I didn't do well on my interview because I was honest. They asked what I wanted to do in medicine. I said plastic surgery because it was the highest paying of the avenues that you could do in medicine. And my goal was money. My goal wasn't because I have this like altruistic need to be a doctor, which I'm so grateful that I didn't get in because I would have been a terrible one. And, you know, they said that I had some growing up to do and I lacked maturity, and they encouraged me to reapply. But for me, that was when I was like, no, I can't have another person decide my destiny for me. This is too much. It's heartbreaking and I need to take control of my life. So then what do? I become an entrepreneur, which you have a lot of control and nothing else. It's like everything else is hard and you're just starting over and it feels impossible. But I took steps and I got into a company where I was convincing people to go onto the internet. This would be 1999, 2000, 2001 time. I'm telling people that the world is going on the internet and you need to stop advertising in the yellow pages and go build this 5-page website because people will find you on the internet in the future. And I do really well at selling websites. So well that the company that hired me, they eventually offer me 51%, take over the company because my sales were just incredible. Mm-hmm. And so we blow up. I'm selling websites hand over fist at $600 a pop, and I think life is great. And then we come to find out that our actual cost to build a website was $700. So I did so good at what I was doing that I put us out of business.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, my business partner in that venture, him and his father are real estate investors as well. And they're building duplexes. And this is all in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, for anyone who doesn't know where Calgary is. It's this beautiful little mountain town in the western part of Canada. Beautiful place. And he's telling me that they're making all kinds of money when they knock down these old houses and they subdivide these lots and they build these duplexes there. And I'm trying to get involved. I'm asking, what can I do? Can I get involved somehow? Can I show up to the site and learn construction? Like I'm really willing to try whatever it is so that I can be involved. Because we grew up very, we grew up basically just above the poverty line. So like we weren't starving, but we didn't have a lot. Mm-hmm. And so I was always ambitious. I always wanted to find opportunities to help my family and better ourselves. And they, my business partner and his father, they were just saying, no, Jamil, there's no place for you here. You don't have any funds to bring to the table. You're not a realtor, so we can't have you list the properties. You really don't have a place here. And as I'm listening to them talk, I hear them lamenting that they just need more building lots. They're like, if we could only find more building lots, we would make so much more money. So that's when I saw an opportunity and I asked, well, what's a building lot and how do I possibly find you one of those? And they explained the parameters. They said, we need a house that got R2 zoning that has a minimum of a 50-foot frontage and 100 feet in depth. And if you can find something like this, we'll buy it from you or we'll buy it. So the next day I'm walking my dog and I live in a neighborhood where they do this, where they knock down old houses and they build duplexes, and I see construction evidence all around me. Now I'm paying attention, right? I hadn't paid attention before, but now I know what I'm looking at. And I walk by a house for rent, and I had actually tried to rent the house 3 months earlier, but it was $200 outside of my budget. And so that's where I was in life, right? Where $200 meant I couldn't live here. I had to live here. Mm-hmm. So I call the lady and I asked her, I said, look, I noticed your house is for rent. It's been for rent for a while. I didn't remind her that I had applied to rent earlier, but I just asked her if she'd be interested in selling instead of renting the place. And her answer was, yeah, absolutely, for the right number. And I asked what that number was. She said $350,000. So I'm like, okay. I go to the office and I ask my business partner, what would you and your dad pay for a house in this neighborhood on this street? Max, like what's the maximum you guys could pay? So I know. And they said 400 all day. And so now I have a $50,000 problem to solve because I don't have any money. I don't have any way to do this deal. And I've never heard of wholesaling. It doesn't exist in my world. And especially in Canada, like that, the entire business model is foreign there. And it's so long ago that it hadn't become cool yet either. Right. And so there's this whole interesting time. So I do what I know how to do, which is cold call. Right. So I pick up the phone book and I start cold calling lawyers, because in Canada, real estate is conveyed by attorneys, not by title companies. And I get a hold of an attorney. I get all the way to the letter S, and an attorney by the name of David Steed changed my life because he explained to me this process called a skip transfer. In Canada, they call it a skip transfer. And he laid it out to me so magically. He was so fresh out of law school, he answered his own phones. That's how like new he was. So he was willing to share information with me freely. And he explained that I just needed 2 contracts. One contract where I was the purchaser of the house at $350,000, and a second contract where I was the seller of the house for $400,000. I needed to get all the signatures on those documents, and I needed to bring the contracts to him. And he explained to me that everything else in the contracts need to match up. So your close date, your inspection time, all of the things that are variables in the contract, they have to line up exactly. So make sure you pay attention to that. But as soon as they're done and you have everybody signed, bring those contracts to me and I'll do the conveyancing and you'll get a check. And I asked, well, what do you mean I'll get a check? Like, what else do I got to do? It's like, well, I'll take my fee and you'll get the difference. And 2 weeks later, there was a check for $47,800 and change waiting for me at his office. And so for a guy who comes from a world where that kind of money is impossible, it's not in our conversations, that was life-changing. And I realized that I could do this over and over again. So I went crazy. I got the newspapers, and I would get into the classified sections of the newspapers, and I would call all the for rents, because I realized that there was leads there. Everybody who was a landlord was a real estate investor, and real estate investors buy and sell. So I would just call, and I would specifically wait till the third of the month to go really crazy, because I knew that after the first, if people didn't have their properties rented, there was a higher likelihood that they would sell. And I made an incredible business of it. I did so well at that I graduated from buying and selling single family to buying and selling apartment buildings. And it worked the exact same way. I'd find developers who were doing condo conversions, who needed old apartment buildings that they can convert into condominiums. I would go find apartment buildings that had handwritten for rent signs on the lawns, and I would call them knowing that they were self-managed, and I would talk to the owner and I just ask if they would sell, and I would put these deals together, and I was so good at it. But again, the human condition never lets us be satisfied with what we have. And so as I'm sitting here making all of this money wholesaling, my eyes are on the developers. I want to upgrade my prestige. I don't want to be the hustler in the middle. I want to be the guy with the Rolls Royce. I want to be the guy calling the shots. And so I decide I'm going to stop wholesaling and I'm going to get into development. And so I take all of the money that I had made wholesaling and I go buy 4 buildings, and I decide we're going to condo convert these buildings. And I have my parents co-sign construction loans to complete those projects. And this is 2000, end of 2006. Yeah. So, you know, what ends up happening is the financial institutions that gave us the construction loans, they reevaluated the loans. And I didn't realize this is something that institutions can do, but they, in Canada at least, I don't think it's legal here in the United States. In Canada, it's something that they routinely do. They requalified my loan, the construction loan, and said, because our credit standards have changed, we need to requalify your construction loan. So in the requalification of my construction loan, they said all of the pre-sales that you had that allowed us to give you this construction loan also need to be requalified, because now lending standards have changed, and all of these buyers who have committed to purchasing these condos, we don't know if they're really creditworthy anymore. And so we need to requalify them. And so obviously they don't requalify because they've upped their lending standards to a completely different world when the credit crunch happened at the time. And so now, because those pre-sales don't exist any longer, my construction loan gets recalled. And I don't have a way to pay these loans off. No new lender wants to loan in this time of the financial situation either. And so we lose everything. My mom and my dad, my sister, myself, my niece, our 150-pound dog, my cat, we all end up losing our homes and moving into a 2-bed, 1-bath apartment. It was devastating. It was the worst time of our lives. It was the worst and best time of our lives. And here's why. Because I got to be back in my house with my parents and eating my mom's food and being around everybody. That was special and it was sweet, but it was painful because we had lost everything. And, you know, for a kid who grew up without a lot and then getting to a situation where I had retired my parents and I really felt good about where we were, to having lost it that fast, it was a really hard emotional tax to pay. So this brings us to what you and I were talking about before you started recording. I didn't know what to do, and real estate had just burnt me. And so oddly enough, I have always been a creative person. And while I was doing real estate, I was doing creative writing, and I was writing comedy. I was writing comedy scripts. And it just so happened that I submitted a script for a pilot that got optioned. And they, you know, an option doesn't mean anything. It just means that they give you a little bit of money and they say, we might make this. And so I thought, hey, if I wrote something good enough to at least get looked at and read and optioned, maybe I've got something to stand on. Maybe I actually could do this comedy thing. So I'm broke now and I have no, I have no life, but I do have a little bit of money from that option. And so as a family, we decide that I'm going to take my chances in Hollywood and try my luck at stand-up comedy. And obviously I'm not a comedian. So you know how that worked out. It didn't. But I really got my comedy chops in that time. So I learned, I trained at the Upright Citizens Brigade, Second City, Hollywood. I learned how to really technically understand comedy. And so to answer the first question you asked me about my ads come from that place of creativity. So I really enjoy being funny. I really enjoy expressing that part of my personality. And so I love the fact that I get to write ads and create something there that's not me in a Lamborghini or me being this, weird, greasy dude that, wants to yell at people on the internet to come and learn from me about real estate, right? I'm myself. I'm me personally. I'm who I am, and I've done these things that are great in real estate. And I'm also easy to be around. Like I like to have fun. I like to laugh. And if that sounds like something that you could learn from, if laughing, enjoying, and being a part of a community and having fun while also learning a new skill and how to buy and sell real estate sounds like it resonates with you, then I might be the right guy for you. And if not, then I'm not. If you look at my ad and you're like, that guy's corny and cheesy and I hate him, okay, I'm sorry. And I don't mind. I'm totally okay if I turn you off and you don't want anything to do with me, because that means that we're just not for each other. And that's it, and I've really enjoyed building that, and I've really enjoyed the community that I've attracted because of it. Because, Astro Flipping, which is my coaching program, it's not coaching, it's a community. It truly is a group of thousands of people who have now learned how to wholesale in an ethical manner, because I'm really big on transparency and ethics and being the thing that you say you are, and taking wholesale from this underground gray area that we've all seen it become, and elevating it to a place where real estate agents approve and use us, where title companies are happy that we bring them business, where lenders understand our process and enjoy the business that we bring, where fix and flip buyers are happy that we're showing up in their emails because we're curating opportunities for them, where homeowners are saying, these guys solved a problem for me that no one was able to solve. And so when everybody's feeling good about the transaction, nobody's mad at you for making money.
Yeah. I love that so much. I really, really do. What got you back though? Because I mean, so many people get burned so badly, not just you, but your family got burned. And then, you take the break, you do the comedy. And then at some point, because we're sitting here talking, you're like, I want to do that again. How did that come about?
Great question. So I'm in LA and I'm doing open mic night everywhere in Hollywood, and it's expensive to live in Los Angeles. It's not cheap. And I'm, now I'm producing and writing skits that are popping up on Funny or Die. And, I actually have things being made now. And so I'm making a little bit of money, and I can start finding ways. Now I need to start figuring out what to do with the little bit of money that I'm earning. And I have to also figure out, how do I survive here in Los Angeles, because everything is so expensive. Rent is just phenomenally expensive. I don't understand how anybody lives there. It's really hard. So I start looking at Phoenix. I look over at Phoenix because I can see that I can buy a condominium in Phoenix for $25,000. This is 2010 now. I can buy a condo for 25 grand, and it rents for $850 a month. And if you were to advertise, hey, I have an investment opportunity for $25,000, I'll give you $850 a month in return.
All day.
That you'd be a Ponzi scheme.
Yeah.
Right? That's,
you'd have people lining up around the block.
For sure. Right. And so I'm looking at that and I'm seeing, hold on a second, this is real. Now, again, guys, someone's going to comment, oh, but what about the cost? What about condo fees? Yes, this is all gross numbers, but still.
And
like
still.
if $25,000 can return me $850 a month gross, that is an incredible return. So I'm earning money in LA and I'm starting to buy condos in Phoenix so that I can arbitrage rent to pay for my life in LA. But, now, life is happening and I get engaged and my wife has a girl and I have a baby from a previous relationship. So like I'm starting to mature and I start to think about the future. Like, what am I going to do? I can't just sit here in Los Angeles and get booed on stage and not earn lots of money so that I can support my people. Like this isn't going to work. So as I'm trying to arbitrage rent in Phoenix, that's the time of short sales. And I'm writing contracts on short sales left, right, and center because 1 in 10 of them get approved at the time. So you're writing on everything, and then whatever the bank approves, then you close on the ones that they approve, and the ones that they don't approve just cancel out. Well, it just so happens that the bank approves more contracts for me than I had the funds to close on. And so now I've got these 2 approved short sales that don't have deed restrictions, meaning I can actually resell them before I close. Like I can wholesale these. And again, I don't know what wholesaling is yet because I hadn't learned about it. I hadn't learned about wholesaling in the American sense, because what I was doing in Canada, I thought was this secret skip transfer Canadian contract law thing that I didn't realize was like a real thing, And though I do understand that contracts are assignable and that you can do this, I figure, hell, why don't I just try to sell my contract on these 2 short sales? So I go to Craigslist and I market that I've got 2 approved short sales that I don't think I can close. And these are the addresses and here are the prices that I'm selling the contracts for. And literally 15 minutes after me putting the ad up, my phone rings. And a gentleman by the name of Tim Wynn, I'll never forget him either, because he looks at the houses, half an hour later calls me back and says, I'll take them. And I'm like, really? He's like, yeah. So I had marked up each one $10,000. So in 15 minutes, I make $20,000 from writing contracts and placing an ad on Craigslist. And so I'm saying to myself, what's God trying to tell me? Really? Like I am over here beating my head against the wall in Hollywood, trying to make it, trying to figure out how to earn and take care of myself and my family, and also express myself and do the things that feel good to me. Meanwhile, I can put together deals in my sleep. Like I'm doing them without even realizing I'm doing them. And so I pack up my bags, 12/12/12, it was my birthday. And I'm in a U-Haul leaving Los Angeles, heading to Phoenix, Arizona to begin my life as a real estate investor, former comedian. And here we are.
Wow. So I generally ask people like, what is your best deal? But just like, and, I've had people say like, I had a 6-figure wholesale deal or, whatever, but it seems to me like that would be technically your best deal because it like got you back in 15 minutes, 20 grand, and like the confidence to do everything you've done now. Is that how you feel about that deal? Is that how you look back on it?
It's not until you just said that, Lili, that I would say that you're 100% right. It's perspective is so beautiful, and thank you for opening mine there, because my answer to that question would have been a different question. It would have been a different answer. It wouldn't have been that specific deal. It was one where I didn't make money, but I had a lot of lessons learned. Mm-hmm. And so it was a lot about, for me, staying in my lane and really doubling down on my competencies, which is underwriting, understanding value. That's what I'm really good at. That's what Keegley, my wholesale business, was built off of, was our understanding of value and how embedded that understanding is into the culture and fabric of our company. And so I've always thought that the deal that I learned the most in was my best deal, but I'm wrong. It was the deal I did with Tim that brought me to Phoenix, because it started everything. And my life, I mean, look, I obviously have some insecurities that make me want attention, because I'm sitting there in LA trying to get people to laugh at me and tell jokes and do these things. But look at how life comes full circle, right? Yeah. I come to Phoenix, I build this incredibly awesome company that becomes a national franchise, and then now I'm on TV, flipping houses with my best friend and my sister, and like all of the things that I wanted in life found a way back to me because of real estate.
That is so awesome. I would still love to hear about that deal where you learned the lessons, because you're not the first person I asked that question to that said, like, you know what, I actually lost some money on this deal, but it's my best one because of what I learned. So I'd love to hear about that one too.
Yeah. So there was a fourplex that was available here in Phoenix, and the neighborhood's called Arcadia. It's where I live now. And it's a really nice part of town where there's a lot of redevelopment there, just like in Calgary, where I was doing infills and where I was trying to buy that house to knock it down. They do a lot of that in this area. And so there's this fourplex that was for sale. And I realized that there was another fourplex beside it, and another one beside it, and another one beside it, and another one beside it. And so I thought, hey, how cool would it be if I got them all under contract? And so I got the first one, and then I asked them if they knew who owned the next one, and they said yes. And then I called them and I told them that I was buying this one and that theirs looked really rough, and if they wanted to sell, I'd be a buyer for it. And they said yes. And I said, okay, well, do you know who owns the others? And he's like, well, I own two, so I'd sell that one too. And I said, okay, well, what about the last one? He's like, well, we don't know who that is. And I'm like, okay. So then that was the piece that I had to go get. And so I go and get that last piece under contract. I have to pay a little bit more money for that than I had the other three. But now I assembled 4 acres in an incredibly poppin' part of Phoenix. And I think, yes, I'm gonna knock it out of the park on this. So I have the contracts on all of these. And immediately a home builder comes and says, I'll give you $100,000, wholesale this to me and let me handle it from here. And my business partner at the time said, not a chance, Jamil, let's not do that. Let's go get this land rezoned, and let's go get entitlements. Let's go subdivide it and get these subdivided into individual lots. And then let's sell the entitled property off to a builder, because we'll add so much more value to the land. And to me, that instinctively, that makes sense, right? Land development is the process of rezoning and then entitling property and then selling it off to builders. So I thought, yeah, okay, why should we make 100,000? Let's make $1 million. What I learned is that first and foremost, builders don't want to buy other people's entitled property. Every builder has a product that they want to build, their own product. And that product has to be attached to the entitled land in the end. Like that, an entitled parcel has product attached.
So let me confirm I understand. So like, say I'm a builder who wants to build duplexes.
Yep.
I have to entitle the land in a way that lets me do that, versus another builder who wants to build like a McMansion. They've got to entitle the way they want to do that.
Exactly.
So if you do it, you're severely limiting the buyer pool.
Exactly.
Okay.
To what your idea is of what should belong on that piece of land.
Mm-hmm.
And builders, the way that they roll is they buy all their materials in bulk. They buy their windows in bulk. They buy their roofing in bulk. So they want everything to be the same. They don't even want to have to go and get new plans done. They want to use plans that they've done on other pieces. That's why if you see like D.R. Horton has the same community. It's actually D.R. Horton that bought my piece from me. They've got the same communities popping up all across the country. There's very little variation between them. They want to use the same product. And so the problem is that process of getting entitlements takes could be over a year. In this case, it took us longer than that. It was almost 2 years. So my profit margin on paper, if you were to look at the whole thing, if you were to say, hey, Jamil, like you bought it for X number of dollars and you sold it for X number of dollars, like, it looks like you made over $1 million on paper. It does. It looks like I made over $1 million on paper, but in fact, I think I made just over $12, all said and done, because my expenses and carrying costs, all of the land costs, like the survey, just getting the process done and over the line, and then holding it so that DR Horton could come and do that process over again. My debt service was so high because I purchased in hard money, and it was an incredibly painful deal for me. Like $12 profit when on paper it says I made near $1 million. That's crazy town.
And all your time.
All my time and stress. And I had just gotten married, right? So like, think of that, Lily. Like I'm in this spot now where I'm like saying I do, when like I just realized I got us into a really tough monthly nut that I have to figure out how to make money to cover. And so there was so much stress involved in that. So I think for me, I have learned time and time again to stay in my lane. I think that's the lesson of my life. And if I can give it to anybody that's watching today, is there's something that you are magically gifted at. And God gives us all some things. And I think that if you can find that thing and lean into it, that's the gift that your job is to share with people, so that they can get inspired to go find their thing and inspire others. And we can all find ways to live our highest and best versions. But when you start comparing yourself to other people is when you start wanting to do what other people are doing. And then when you start doing what other people are doing, it's not necessarily meant for you. And when you start encountering resistance, you know that you've overstepped, and you know that you're in a place that you probably don't belong. And so my life lesson is stay in your lane, dude.
That is so good. Same lesson somebody else shared with me of like, you know, they got a deal. It wasn't their normal wheelhouse, and somebody offered to buy it for, you know, 6 figures. And they were like, no, I'm going to take it the whole way and knock it out the park myself. And then, you know, it doesn't work out. It's the same answer when people ask me like, do you flip houses, or why don't you do stocks, or why don't you do drop shipping, et cetera, et cetera. I'm like, those things work. I just don't know how.
Right.
And like, I have not committed enough time and resources to learn how to feel confident doing it. So I'm just not going to, because I just don't know.
And you're so good at what you do. Like, that's the thing. Like, you know, why, right? You know, and the world tells you, your audience tells you, right there, because we resonate to you. We understand, and we're like, yes. And like, when you see people cheering for you when you win, and even like learning from your failure and learning from like the places where you stub your toe, and being able to turn that into like a positive opportunity to share information with folks. Like, I mean, yes, the reason you are as special as you are is because there's no Lily. There's no one out in the world like you who does what you do, the way you do it, right? And that's the magic, I think.
So let me ask you this, and this isn't for our video, this is just selfishly for me. Like, to be honest, I'm enjoying this conversation so much, and I'm like, man, do I want to start a podcast? Right? But then I'm like, but is that complementary to what I'm already doing, or is that stepping outside?
Oh no.
So what do you think?
First and foremost, yes. The answer to that question is yes, Lily. You want to start a podcast because when right now we get so much, like we get 6 or 12 or 9-minute snippets of what you want to share at the time that you want to share it, and and it's fantastic, right? Like the videos are great, but a podcast is so much, gives you so much more breadth, and it allows you to be interactive. You know, like you really get to pick up new perspective and understand more perspective and reach a greater audience when you can find people that will resonate with other people that you bring on as guests, right? And it's something that I have, we have Wholesale Hotline. That's a podcast that I do with Pace Morby and Brent Daniels. We do it every Monday. And the number of lives that we've seen get affected because of that podcast is spiritual legacy. Like, I know that we've positively affected hundreds of families by the information that we've shared and the guests that we've brought on and the inspiration that we've given to people. And so it's not only about you in that sense. Like, a podcast is necessary for everybody else.
Yeah.
Like,
so
you've got to do it for other people. You're all the things, and like you bring a whole new flavor to this business, and you're elevate. You know how many people that look like you are going to be inspired to do what you do because they see you, and now they're going to have an opportunity to even interact with you.
100%.
It's
You're
your
so
responsibility. You're all the things, and like you bring a whole new flavor to this business, and you're elevate. You know how many people that look like you are going to be inspired to do what you do because they see you, and now they're going to have an opportunity to even interact with you.
100%.
It's
You're
your
so
responsibility.
right. You're so right. How do you feel about, and I don't want to take up too much of your time, you're my last meeting right
We're
now,
good.
so
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not rushing, but you just let me know. How do you feel about like the value of your other content versus the value of your podcast? Like, do you have different content goals? Is your monetization strategy stronger in one area? How do you think about that?
So, man, those are fantastic questions. So no, they're not different goals in that the podcast is very complementary to the other content that I make. But the beautiful thing about the podcast, and here's a piece that you'll, I think, appreciate, because keeping up in content creation is really hard. However, when you do a podcast, it gets a lot easier. Because if you ever look at my IG and my YouTube shorts, all it is chopped up podcast.
Yeah.
And so you can repurpose so much information and content for your shorts and your IG and your YouTube shorts by doing the podcast, that it complements the whole piece. And in terms of monetizing, I think it'll add, like, the podcast, live streaming the podcast on my YouTube channel bumped my YouTube revenue by like 15%.
Wow.
So, and I don't know if that will, because I don't know a lot about the monetization part of YouTube, but what I can say is that our niche, people pay a lot of money to advertise on our niche. And so when you have that many live eyeballs, and then you allow that content to then stream after, or to remain on the channel afterwards, those are always my highest producers.
So
I love this. Thank you for
have to have you as the first guest on the new pod, maybe.
I would love to. And
we'll see what happens.
would you like to be on, would you come on to Wholesale Hotline?
Absolutely. I will. I'm gonna drop my brother / brand manager in the chat. Just let him know I said I'd come on, and he'll get a date and make it happen.
Amazing. Yay.
So cool. Okay, so back to these couple of questions I have for you for this video.
Yep.
Where do I want to go next? So do you feel like you have a secret sauce or like a competitive advantage in the real estate investing niche?
Absolutely. So
will you share it with us?
100%. I'm happy to. So a lot of what we do as wholesalers is we are transacting on a transactional basis, right? So if you're doing direct to seller, you go and you build rapport with a homeowner, you follow up, you finally get this deal under contract, and that cost to contract, after all of the money you spent on lists, skip tracing, follow-up, CRMs, wages for staff, all the things. I've been calculating, at least here in Phoenix, the average is about $7,000 to $13,000 cost per contract. That's our average cost. And then the deal is done. You sell the contract, and there's nothing to be done after that. So I think that's broken. Personally, I don't want to work that hard, right? I think that if you could figure out how to turn this business into a relationship business, and you can build rapport and create connection in a compounding way instead of just one and done, then you could create a lasting pipeline. And so my secret sauce is relationships. So all of our deals, first and foremost, Keegley, which is my company, we've franchised in 132 markets. So we're the largest wholesaler that exists in the country. And our model is wholesalers and agents. So all of our deal flow come from other wholesalers and agents. Mm-hmm. And what we bring to the table is distribution. So we have, our secret sauce is our capacity to build the most incredible buyers list that exists. And in a time like now where deals aren't selling, where, you know, the market shifted and hedge funds have started to disappear and people really need to find a better paying buyer, that's when we thrive. And so our secret sauce has always been, rather than looking at this business from a transactional perspective, we look at it from the perspective of relationships. And I can build one relationship that can turn into millions of dollars. In fact, like one of my agents, Monique Walker, her and I have been doing business for over a decade. And every year, our yearly revenue each with just the one relationship, over $1 million. One relationship.
That's
so imagine if like you had one homeowner source that made you over $1 million. I don't even have to do anything now. I could just answer Monique's calls and make over $1 million a year.
That's so smart. So when you say franchise, do you mean like the typical like McDonald's has franchises type model? Really?
Yes. Yeah, we full with an FDD, audited financials, the whole thing.
I have to make a podcast just to have an excuse to ask you more questions. That's so smart.
I want to hang out with you. I mean,
anytime. Are you in Phoenix?
I'm in Phoenix. You ever have an opportunity to get out here, get on a plane and get your butt over here and let me show you everything that we're doing.
I actually did just get an invite to come to Phoenix. Okay. Question. Why do you make and this is just for me. I'm working on something that I think could be big, could really help people. Why do you make content? Why do you not just invest in real estate?
So the purpose of me creating content, I'd say in the beginning, I was actually not at all interested in making content to start. I got pushed into making content by my best buddy, Pace Morby, who is a content king. Like he always has the camera on. In fact, when Pace and I first met, I didn't even have Facebook. I didn't even have a Facebook profile picture. My profile picture was an owl and no posts on anything. Like just, I was a ghost. And I saw that for him, he was really able to build personal brand, and then that allowed him to get more incoming opportunities. And so I thought, hey, what a cool thing to do, like to just talk about what you do in real life, and people will resonate to that and maybe want to do business with you. So when COVID happened, that's when I first turned the camera on. Prior to that, I hadn't really done anything. I hadn't created any content. I wasn't known. I was just really an unknown person doing a lot of deals. And COVID gave me an opportunity, an excuse to get out there and actually say something because I had time. And then because it landed, because people really got a lot of value from what I was talking about. And also I was seeing so much misinformation out there, like people who were claiming to be in the business that I very well knew weren't in the business anymore, that were not doing deals, that had really never done deals, that had understood what the model was and then talked about it and then were just selling off incredibly expensive coaching. I thought that's sucky and I want to do my part to be different than that. And so it was really twofold. First was I was bored. Second, I saw that I had an incoming opportunity. And then third, I think just cleaning up the space, right? Having this be where this wasn't a world of the Lambros and just like that vibe just isn't me, What about just down to earth dads? You know, what about
Yeah.
that? Who can just talk to other down to earth dads that are wanting to make a difference in their children's lives. So what about guys like us?
You should make some merch that says Down to Earth Dads.
Thank you guys so much for watching. Yes, I forgot to record an outro, but I'll get it next time. If you made it to this part in the video, please comment the donut emoji so I know that you're a real one. And you'll see some links on screen to check out more content from myself and Jamil.